Bones Jones going here. Just setting up the YouTube here for the YouTube peeps out there. And then we're gonna try to play some golf. Q school, baby. I'm gonna shut the door to the laundry because that's loud as fuck. Laundry for the win. Alright. I don't really understand how this works, but I'm just setting it up. Bones Jones is back. Let's see here. Hit that. Okay. Let's play some golf. Let's play some golf. Okay. Let's get bony with it. Let's play. What happened? Wait, did we... Okay, I'll accept that. I don't even know what's going on with this. Have I already played this? Oh yeah, I'm -7. I'm in first place. I've already started this. Let's go. Let's play. Wait, how did the pants get changed? What? How did I... Okay. Did it not... the brown... I want the brown pants. What's going on here? Alright, I hope that they brown up. They better brown up on me. I might get stuck with blue pants here. Disaster. And just for the fun of it, I'm just going to listen to the Bill Simmons podcast.
You're listening to the Bill Simmons podcast presented by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook is the best place to bet on the NBA. We have these
This is actually...
Friday player performance.
I got to actually play well to win. I got a guy on my tail.
We have picks for me sometimes, boosts, and all kinds of fun things. Get ready in the playoffs. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today to get in on the action. And by the way, the Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit theringer.com/RG to learn more. Listen to this episode for additional details. Must be 21.
I don't remember playing this at all.
Game prompt called Win Out Your Gambler, or visit rg-home.com. Coming up, an absolutely incredible day for TV watching in sports. It's all next. We're also brought to you by the
This is
Ringer
one of the most fun
podcast
Sundays
network.
for
After
sports I
rewatch
can
was coming
remember.
For you on Monday night.
Let's
We
just
did a
take it
movie
easy.
from the late 90s that's a very light, fluffy movie that you'll probably be surprised we did, but it was a request by Juliana Robinson, who came in to LA for a couple months and did a bunch of great stuff with us, so I let her pick a rewatch this, and it's a good one. And I was excited she picked the one she picked. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
He's got blue pants. How did I get these blue pants?
Is not covering the last
They
of Us.
suck.
We'll be covering it on the House
I'm
of
gonna
Podcast,
play. This is...
the Midnight Boys as well. So you can check out both of those. Celtic City, episode 7, which basically tackles everything Afterbird with the 90s, which was really grim. And I was living in Boston for a lot of it, but there's no basketball tomorrow night, so there's no better chance to catch up with Celtic City. It's on HBO 9 p.m., or you can catch up on all the episodes so far on Max.
That's fine.
Coming up on this podcast,
See that?
Priscilla and I,
That's fine.
we recorded right after Rory
We
McIlroy
play this.
won the Masters, and we thought
Super
it was
chill.
going to be an NBA podcast, but we're going to talk about golf for the first 30 minutes, and then we went right into Game 82, Clips Warriors, all the playoff matchups, things we've noticed, some award stuff we're trying to figure out, and it's a really good podcast. First, our friends from Pearl Jam.
Too hard. Too hard. Go in the hole! Ah. Come on, Bones. That was a good putt. That was a good putt. It wasn't that much harder than I thought it was.
All right, we are recording. It is 4:30 Pacific time. Just watched the playoff hole of the Masters. We're going to talk a lot of basketball later, but that was one of the most emotional Masters of all time. And I was trying to think, Marcelo, how many times have you seen a guy just pull a monkey off his back like that in your lifetime that you can remember? Because we've had different versions of it, right? Like we had LeBron in 2016, like bringing Cleveland the title. You have John Elway in Denver in
Down
97.
12.
There's just not a lot of those. I'm kind of choked up. I don't know what to do.
You sound a little off,
I
but
wanna
in a
say-
good way.
It was an emotional thing. I really thought not only did he blow it, it's one of those things that just hangs with you for the rest of your career and becomes one of the first.
You can't.
things.
How do you
That's
check the
we
ball?
were-
I don't
we were hitting
understand.
some
This is
sort
the
of
weird thing about this
crossroads
game.
in his career that I don't know if you can come back from. And the weight of that is almost.
That's fine. It makes the
it's
game
worse
interesting.
Than actually just winning the Masters and getting that off. You know, because you have to live with that the rest of your life, basically.
Well, there was the Steve Young one. Remember when he won the Super Bowl and they actually were on the sideline? He was like, "Get the monkey off my back." They were pretending they were
Right.
pulling a monkey off of his back because it was the post Montana thing. But for golf, I'm not educated enough to run through all of this and tell you it brings back memories of Royal Troon or anything. But I know that I was always frustrated with golf fans. They'd be like, "Who do you root against? Like, what are you talking about? Root for good golf? Like, come on. There's gonna be a couple guys you hate, you know." And Bryson, ironically, was kind of that guy. He filled this villain void. But then once you start to understand like how golfers feel about the sport, they don't really want anyone to have that moment. They really don't. Like, I think we enjoy it with the NBA and NFL. You're like, all right, good. I'm glad this guy choked because he's just not my favorite. It backs up all my arguments.
Right.
As we get to Harden's awesome game later today. But
Yeah.
golfers just don't look at the sport that way. So you're absolutely right. I mean, if he ends up after the shot on 17, it's going to become something of a Masters lore, and then missing a putt, which looked like it really never had a chance on 18. It's not like it was the easiest putt, so it's not like he missed like a 2 or 3 footer. And he's this choke artist, but
Well,
yeah,
there's the second shot on 18 that starts it, right? All you have to do is basically do it in the playoff hole. Just get in, 2-putt, you win the Masters. It's in the trap. Then the hit out of the trap, just not quite close enough. He's got some work left. And that's golf. You need a 4, he gets a 5.
Trying to win
It's
this.
Like Rose was hot. In the betting market heading into the playoff, I think Rory was still favored, which I was really surprised by because it's sometimes you watch those and you're like, how is this guy going to bounce back from this? But he bounced back. He hit one of the great shots. I was thinking watching him today, he's like one of those basketball players that just gets hot and cold during the same game. You know, like Steph's a little bit like this, right? Like
Ooh,
Steph
I
today
pushed
was
it.
like 1 for
The
5
hell?
in that Clipper game. Then all of a
What
sudden
the
he gets
fuck?
hot.
That's
He's
no
just
time for
making
that.
everything for about
Oh my god, that was
minutes. And that's
easy
that's
shot.
what the roller coaster ride of Rory is like during these tournaments. He looks amazing. Then all of a sudden it falls back. Then he comes back the other way. It's just the swings of
doesn't.
golf. But I think the one thing that's different this time around is people wanted it so badly for him. You could feel it when we were on the course on Tuesday and Wednesday. Like he's clearly the most popular, guy at the tournament now. He's taken the Tiger spot. But people, when you have that, when you have the emotion of all the people with you, they had that cut. Did you see that cutaway when the people on 18 were just waiting? The scoreboard changed and reflected that his score had gone back, that he got in the double, and people were, they're holding their hands in their heads like something like really horrible had just happened. Like that's how badly everybody wanted it for him. So to come through with the pressure you have on yourself, but also all of these people you don't want to let down. Like I don't even know if there's a comparison to that. In basketball, you only have 18,000 people in the arena. This is like, tens and tens of thousands of people all clustered around.
But that's the difference with the sport. Like basketball doesn't really give you a chance to sit there and mope. Like you kind of have to get back to it. I mean, most of the sports that we talk about all the time, there's very little time to sit there and kind of think about what you're going through. And for him to double one, and then you send me a text, you go, "Hey, we may have to leave with this if he falls apart." And it's almost this anticipation that he's going to fall apart because he's played so well the first 3 rounds. And then I look it up, I'm like, oh, but then he's like 4 under the next 10 holes. So I think it's kind
There's
of
a tree in the mix here.
Even him,
582. That's kind of a lot.
which you're right is the bigger part of him missing the putt on 18, is that he actually kind of cracked a smile. He almost laughed at himself, like, you're gonna be fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
So that there was some
wasn't a
emotion
great
that he
swing.
was showing, I thought was a better
That
sign.
wasn't a great swing.
And I also think it helps probably playing 18 again all over to start the playoff, knowing like, okay, my second shot, like I can't do
Come on,
that
Bo
again.
Jones. Man, I did not put these blue pants on. What happened? Some
And
sort of
also, like, a lot
glitch.
of people in attendance too, based on what we're talking about, just the patrons, right, and their mindset of just wanting great things to happen, and not terrible things to happen. Very positive group. There's also something. There's also something too, which it's not. I shouldn't say.
Can't hit the driver off the D.
Want to see him complete the slam, so now he's got to ever do it. You get to say that you were there in 25 at Augusta to see this. This is one of those. It's not Tiger's win,
Oh, that's a
but
bad
it's
shot.
One of the more memorable.
That is
ones
ugly.
because He completes this career odyssey because if you
He's
think
so
about
bad,
the start of his
it's
career,
right of the
it's
bunker.
like,
There we
oh my
go.
God, like, what
Man,
can
not
this
dialed
guy
in
do?
on
We're
that
talking about like, is he gonna win 10 majors or something like that? I
This is a
remember
decent look, though.
One of the debate shows at ESPN, like after he got married, it's like, well, he is married. It's like, so he's the only pro athlete who's married, and this is why he's playing bad now. All of a sudden, like I understand time constraints can change as the non-married guy. Like I'm aware that your schedule's a little tighter, but it drove me crazy because he wasn't playing as well, and there had to be a reason. It was like the only thing
that all?
anybody could point to.
Oh my God.
But he's never really been somebody that. I mean, his game itself is so enjoyable. I think he had a shot yesterday where I was watching.
All right.
He's like 209 out.
I gotta remember how to play this game.
And he smokes it into the air too. He throws it like a dart.
Oh, that's right.
You're
The
like,
flop
how did you get it that
is the
far
strat.
at that angle?
The
So
flop is
he's
money
also
on this
probably
game.
as much fun as everybody or anyone on the tour, on top of everybody, rooting for somebody for like him to complete this.
Yeah, there's a fearlessness to him with some of the shots he hits. He had a couple today where he's in front of trees.
Shakey's
and
Pizza. I don't remember how to play this
branches,
game.
All kinds of things. You're like, wait, is he going for this?
Well, there's the
Yeah,
tower
he
shot.
does
There's the one on the left side of the drive where he gets a decent enough bounce, and then you're like, he's gonna go through that or over it or what?
What a struggle.
You know, it's like the guy that never gives in. To just go, let me
Yeah.
Could I
save
be
the
playing
ball.
any
He's
worse?
constantly thinking like, what's the best score can I get on? He plays the game the way no one should ever play.
Yeah, we did a thing on my pod this week about the people that the gallery responded to.
All right,
the
well,
most.
that was
The Tigers
just
basically
ass.
won. There was 2 different tournaments.
We gotta remember how to play this game.
So basically, the Tiger tournament was happening, the gallery's just following him, and then everybody else is playing. Now Tiger's gone, and Rory had become the guy, but Bryson was kind of, gaining on it, and you could feel like those two had separated themselves from everybody else who was at the Masters, basically, with the fans, with the reactions, with the interest, everything. So then the fact that they're teamed up head to head for this last one, he double bogeys the first hole, and it just seemed like Bryson was gonna run over him like a freight train. The opposite happens. Then it seems like he has it. Then all of a sudden he
tight
doesn't.
window.
And Rose makes that crazy putt on 18, right as Rory's starting to maybe waver a tiny bit. But it's
Let's just pound it.
I can't. The 5 Masters I probably remember the most, and I don't remember golf the same way I remember basketball, where I can tell you like every single finals and in the Western Finals this happened. But the Masters is the one that I've cared about the most.
That was not a good choice.
86 Nicklaus, the Faldo Norman Masters,
This is not going awesome.
the Tiger in 2019, and then this one. I think we're at least 4 of the best. I'm sure there's a bunch of others, but those are the 4 that the Faldo Norman Master. I don't remember anybody not talking about that for like 4 days after. That just felt like this life altering. I've just never seen an athlete fall apart like that. Have you? It's
No,
an
that
all-time
was-
example of an athlete
This is
just
gonna be a struggle.
completely falling apart.
It might be the only time I watched golf and cared during college, like that round. Right. I mean, sports are hard to find a way to fit into the. We didn't have cable.
That's a pretty good shot. Oh, settle.
Oh
Oh my God, what is going on? That doesn't look realistic at all. That's just flying.
During college, and I just remember that afternoon. It's a hungover, whatever. It's kind of like, is it muddy out or sunny out in Vermont? And then you realize like that really is one of those results you'll never forget where you were.
And
Because it was
Faldo
just-
hugging him at the end, I don't ever remember anything like that either. Where Faldo felt worse about winning than probably anybody who's ever won a golf tournament. But, golf, we were talking about it when we were in there. You have team sports, you have a sport like the Clippers-Warriors game that we're going to talk about, a little bit later. Guys can affect the games. Draymond has that terrible put where he just should have gone up with it. He's trying to draw a foul. He screwed that play up. It's not the entire reason they lost. It's the thing you think.
Right.
Golf, you're just by yourself. There's nobody else. There's other reason you're gonna win or lose. It's all you. You can't blame anybody. You're there with your thoughts. You're there with the momentum of it. You're there with all of a sudden, hey, I just don't feel great about this drive, but I have to hit it anyway. All these little moments that you're just battling. We were saying it's the only sport where you have to be like insanely competitive, but also completely calm. Is there any other sport like that? You have two emotions that are direct. I was talking to my wife about this yesterday because I was explaining to her the whole Rory thing, and I was like, "Here's this sport where you just have these two things that don't make sense together. I have to be like a driven, competitive maniac, but I also have to be completely calm at the worst possible moments of whatever I'm competing in, or the scariest, or the hairiest, whatever you want to say. And that's
These are
why there's so
cool.
few great golfers. You can't juggle that, you know?
No, it's a really great way of putting it because I remember when the Sloan paper came out about there's no such thing as clutch, and I thought, okay, you know, there's all sorts of great basketball players that
Settle.
want
Oh
to
my
just
God.
shave it down to down one, sort of tie, take
Just
that shot,
rolling
and then you
out of
look at what
control.
Field goal makes versus field goal
Oh my
attempts.
God.
Like your favorite players have awful stats on those. Like there's all sorts of guys you can go through and be like, this guy's a killer, and then you're like, he's 2 for 30 in these situations. Well, and then if people hate one of those guys, they'll put that up, and it's like, okay. I mean, it feels a little like politics. You're like, well, what's your guy doing? You know, what's your guy shooting?
This game
in
is
that
just
situation,
the
which
balls just
completely eliminates
the balls just be rolling out in this
shot
game.
down 3 with 58 seconds left to go that ties it. It's like that's a really clutch shot that matters, but it gets lost in the filtering with a lot of stuff, right? So when that paper came out, it wasn't like I didn't do a nerds thing, you know, like some of the Sloan papers that had come out early on. We're talking about like the waste of block shots because it wasn't always gaining the possession.
Oh my God.
But I just felt like
How did I leave that short?
there's math that can't prove that this thing is true. Can't we prove it another way? And that
Yeah, it
there are
doesn't mean
people,
it's not true.
right? Doesn't it like? Do we believe that there are people that are really tight?
Not out of it yet.
Spots.
Not
And
playing
as
well.
I recall,
Need some birds.
Probably that shows up more than
Need to
any other
find my
sport.
inner
I don't
Rory
know
here.
If it's somebody throwing an interception. I don't know if it's missing a free throw. Is the closest thing we have to a putt in the other sports. Maybe it's an error, but you know, again, that's not going to happen. You're not going to have enough chances, or the math would make any sense. So if we sit here and we agree that there are people that can choke, that are just not comfortable, then we should be
There you
able
go.
to figure out a way.
There's a shot.
There isn't math that
There's a
backs it up.
shot.
Clearly, there are people
Settle.
that are just a little bit more comfortable coming back from that. And golf presents like this reset where you open with a double for Rory, and it's like, here we go.
Yeah.
And everybody sitting around watching just knows what would happen to them. Like it's just gonna fall apart. It's like, well, again, this is why these guys are the best in the world. There's nothing in the other sports. Like I don't watch a receiver get open going, I can do that. I don't watch somebody get a shot off in basketball thinking, oh, that I would like. We've accepted the gap.
Let's
in
go.
golf because there are moments where even the worst golfer can have like this great shot, and everybody like kids around, or your friends are asking you like, what would you do on 18 right now? There's that disconnect where I don't know that we appreciate the mental reset, hold the hole that these guys have to do to keep themselves in it and then ultimately win a major.
It's the biggest disconnect between fans and the people covering whatever sport you're going to pick and the people who actually do it. Like even, did you see UFC last night?
I did.
So Lopez, who ends up losing, and he just seemed tight in the first couple rounds.
Let's go that
against
way.
Vogue. And then as it went along in the last couple rounds, he kind of became who he was. And like even stuff like that, you think, yeah, I can see it. I can see why you would get tight. What was the most nervous you've ever been professionally doing anything? Not to compare us to athletes, but it's just an interesting side track.
I probably the first time I ever called a baseball game because it was the first time I was ever on the air. You know, the nervousness went away pretty quickly. I was definitely a little like tuned up to host them, but
How about when you were actually like established professionally, but there was still a moment where you had nerves?
the only thing I could think of is anchoring when I had to anchor because it wasn't something. It was everybody told me I couldn't do it, so I was like, all right,
What were you anchoring?
the combine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because then I actually had to like pay attention to all the cues and the directors and all this stuff. We're pretty close to being called absolute losers for comparing anchoring the combine to winning the Masters, but
I'm just talking about when you feel something that you feel like you can do, but then your heart starts pounding and the pressure comes in because it can be anything, right? I remember the first time I hosted PTI. Like
Yeah, that's a good one.
10
Right.
minutes before, and you kind of sit down, you're getting in, and they hook you in, and I was just like, I'm fucking terrified. I'm like, literally, I'm terrified. And I wonder, like, in sports, you're not going to be like that because it's repetition and you've done so many things, but I'm sure there's moments where you're like, I'm good, I've done this a million kajillion times, but I'm still kind of terrified. And golf has to be the number one for that. I think tennis is a good one. Where like, oh, I got to get this serve in. I'm down 30-40. I've got to get this first serve in, and that's just a different. Once you start thinking about it, it's
Brutal.
different. Basketball, like I remember the scariest free throws. I've talked about this. Scariest free throws I ever saw were the Ray Allen shot game when it looked like the game was over, and then Miami hit the three, and they fouled Kawhi, and San Antonio was up 2, and they came to our side where our set was.
Why is
The
that
crowd
going
was
so
just
far?
So loud and things were shaking. And Kawhi was
I don't
on
understand.
22.
I don't
He
understand.
had to make these 2 free throws basically. To
I haven't
clinch
figured
the
out this game at all.
And I was just watching, going, "This seems too hard. I don't know how he's going to make this." And he missed the first one. He made the second. But when you're in the vicinity of something like that, and you can actually feel the pressure, and you're just a bystander, it's unreal. I've
Go in
been
the hole.
lucky enough to been to a lot of different games and events where you've had that feeling. And it's just, there's no way you can't feel it, even if you're a player. Like, even like Clippers Rockets, when the Clippers collapsed in 2015, like, you could feel that in the arena. You could feel the energy shifting. So I'm sure you feel it in golf, too. Not to mention the nerves.
The benefit of all these other sports that we're talking about for the most part, granted not so much baseball, but basketball.
All right, let's win this. Come on.
And the
We can figure this out. This game is not the way I remember it being.
It's kind of a wake up. Like, even if you're
Right.
nervous,
Come on,
like,
Bo
it's those
Jones.
moments where you have
Oh,
time
look
to
at this
think.
tight. This
Like
is a
football,
tough golf course.
Like most people will tell you, they don't really feel like they're ready to go until they get absolutely blasted. And then once they get blasted, it's like, okay, let's
Yeah,
go
banging
small.
bodies probably helps with the nervous energy a little bit.
With golf, to sit there and to think, and you have the guy in front
Go.
of their group screwing up.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's kind of delayed on 18.
Muscle.
So now you have even more time to think. But Rory's straight off the tee. It's that second shot that we would have thought about a lot differently and would have remembered forever. Now we'll just forget it within a week,
Right.
which is great, which is good for Rory. But yeah,
Tough
there's
pin
just-
placement.
there's probably you always wonder, like, there's like, it's not the G League guy, but if you ask NBA players, like, hey, was there somebody that you grew up with or somebody you played, you'd be like, this guy was nasty, like he just gave it to us all the time. And you're like, oh, what happened to him? Like, oh, the coach fucked him, transfer, and all these different things. You just wonder how many great golfers there are that
Okay,
can't
pushed it a little bit.
handle
No problem.
any of this stuff. Like, if no one's around and they're just playing another guy, they're just as good as them. But once they're on this kind of platform or at this level, I just imagine it's a massive separator that we don't even think about compared to the physical.
Oh
skills
my
themselves.
God.
Well, my buddy Nathan Hubbard, who co-hosts the Fairway Rolling podcast with House, and his brother's on the tour, Mark, and he's talked about this on the podcast, so I'm not talking out of school. Mark got to like 63 one year, right? He was really close. And Nathan's dream as his brother is for him to crack it and make the Masters and have his brother be at the Masters. That's like the dream. He's come close. And it's what you're talking about. He's got 95% of it, and he can't just put together the 4 straight days in a row or the 9 holes when he really needs it in a big tournament or whatever the one thing you need to get in the top 10 to get some exemption. And it's always like one shot, one hole where it can't happen. And there's probably like dozens of guys like him, right? They're almost there, and it's just like, I even look at the NBA. We some of the guys that we talk about that we like watching, and you think like, is Cam Whitmore sitting on the Rockets bench going, if I just got playing time, I could potentially be an all-star? There's got to be like 50 guys in the league right that, right? Tari Eason's like, I'm a second-team all-defense guy. I just don't get enough minutes. So yeah, it's a razor-thin margin. I think the one thing with Rory, and I just think in general, authenticity is making a big kind of comeback.
I
push
peened it
in
big time. That's not the time for that.
We had this whole
Not the
era of
time for
sports
that.
with the guys
Ugh.
being told to fall down when they win a tennis tournament. You can see cut to the coach
That was
waving
brutal.
for
That was just a
Listen,
miss
Agassi,
hit, miss
go
job.
down after he won. People trying to manipulate certain moments. Watching Murray just collapse and just be that overcome by winning, that to me was the most authentic thing we're probably going to see this year. I would guess.
Yeah, you look. I give Rory a lot of credit for that because there's just everything's covered, right? And this has been for a long time. And so
Decent.
there's certain athletes. Like I'll just use LeBron for
That was
example.
kind of an opportunity, though.
Like, I don't know how you could be famous this long and have everybody like you. Like we could get into some of the criticisms of personality, but like overall, I mean, come on, it's not that like nobody thinks he's a dick.
Yeah, 23 years. Yeah.
Right? But he comes up as what junior high age awareness, and then cover Sports Illustrated mid-teens and the whole thing. And you can see with certain guys that become famous, and now I'm not just on LeBron, I'm talking generally here, is it's kind of like the high school kid. You see like an interview on some recruiting site, and he's like, I'm all about winning, all I care about is winning, thinking about and just like you don't even care about it. You probably don't. Like maybe some of you might, but you've all watched what is the highest approval response or explanation of yourself. So a lot of it
You're
disingenuous.
pandering to whatever you think people want to hear you say.
You know what you're supposed to say. You're younger, you haven't really formed a ton of your own opinions on things. I mean, it's kind of impossible without more life experience to begin with. So it feels like so much of what we've seen over the last few years is rehearsed, and I'm not sure that I entirely blame athletes, especially a younger generation kind of coming up this way, feeling like there's no
He's fired up, though.
constantly.
Love to see it.
Everything I do is consumed in some way. So I may play it safe, or I guess it's kind of like the Russell Wilson thing, where I know exactly once he does the post game, he's going to thank the offensive line. He's going out of his way to go over this mental checkbox to just make it seem like he is the most team first dude that you've ever come across your entire life. But then you lose that connection because you already know what's coming. You've heard the same shit for years and years and years. So
Russell getting astray.
Kind of peace,
I should have
Rory,
seen that one coming. Oh my
maybe
god.
these other guys that get a little
So
bit
bad.
older, and you just feel totally comfortable in it. It's
He
great.
likes it.
Is also like
Disaster.
a likable personality on top of everything else.
Well, it's one of the reasons I think you and I have gravitated to Edwards, Anthony Edwards in basketball, because he's just authentic all the time. Almost.
Did you see?
Sometimes to his detriment.
Did you see what happened the other night with him?
Tell me.
The crowd was chanting child support when he was at the free throw line, and he started laughing.
Oh my God! What crowd was that?
It was 2 nights ago, I think.
Oh, one of the latter. Oh my God!
Look, I'm not like suggesting
but he knows it. He knows he's gonna take shit for certain things, and he's pretty open about it, and he'll talk
That'd be a good
about
one.
it. Yeah, that's one. Well, we'll see when he plays the Lakers.
That was ass. That hole was ass. Why is he so fired up? I just got a bogey. I'm down 1. Down 2 now. Stanton took Stanton down with me. Someone else came around.
Well, I was gonna say Lamar or Josh Allen, maybe. James Harden. I'm trying to think of guys in different sports who monkey on the back guys. Lamar's not old enough yet. Like Rory, we had some real years here, and then we had U.S. Open last year, and we've had some suffering and time spent invested in him getting over the hump for forever. So it almost has to be Lamar's.
Give me some
almost too
birds.
young.
Let's go.
Don't have enough losses yet. Josh Allen's too young. Like Harden would be an interesting one.
Because I think there'd have to be
Harden wins 4 straight rounds.
Yeah, because I don't think Allen's had bad playoff games. I think Lamar has had worse playoff games, but I think we all feel better about him as a quarterback now. Harden has a long recipe of this stuff, and I'll admit, as I was watching today,
now we're talking.
This game, but he was so good. I've even joked. I think there probably been a couple seasons going into it where I was like, you think he's just be due to have kind of a baseline? Like, I need your floor to be higher than some of those.
Let's go.
Disastrous.
Come on, Bones Jones. Quest for greatness. This is where greatness. Oh
Oh
man, Stanton fell off completely. He's having a hard time.
There's some guys that I think of like, look, I just think there's different ways to talk about different players and their failures and their successes, and sometimes we just want to label everyone that's failed a failure, and it's all for the exact same reasons. And it's like, okay, well, sometimes Josh Allen's going up against Patrick Mahomes, so.
It's a tough one.
Are we going to shit on Josh Allen for it? I mean, I guess you will if you want to do that on TV because I've seen it, but it has to be some of your own undoing as well. And Rory's had that.
Right.
So I think Harden's, like, if we want to spend more time on it, I mean, Embiid's probably not at top of mind right now because he's been hurt, but he's probably, but it's just not.
Here's a good example.
Harden's made the playoffs every year.
Ray Bork is a good example because anything that happened to him was not by his doing. He was fucking
Why does it
awesome
roll
over
all the way to the end of the
Bruins
green?
back then, and it really came down to they were always like a third line center too short, or one defenseman short. They never spent quite enough money around him, but he was awesome, and nobody ever blamed Ray Bork. So then when he finally went to Colorado and he won, and I was living in Boston back then, I think you were too. Everyone went to bars to root for Colorado so that Ray Bork could finally get one because we loved Ray Bork. We wanted him to get one. That he didn't have the kind of tragedy and the ups and downs of somebody like Rory. So I don't know who it is. Rory was clearly the most popular. It could be Alcaraz.
Deez.
Alcaraz already won. I don't know who it is.
I guess I pushed it a little bit.
I was still in Vermont, and I remember because he was traded, and he was teammates with one of my friends, and he told this awesome Ray Bork story, which is pretty minor, so I'm not gonna build it up too much. It's too late, but like he was on the team. It's Ray fucking Bork,
Yeah.
One of the younger guys, was like, Ray, can I get your cell or you get a number? And he was like, why? So you and your buddies can call me drunk in the middle of the night?
That was his answer?
But he knew. He was like, it was in a funny way. He wasn't being a jerk about it.
That's great.
That's great. He knew based on the way the guy was asking him. It was like it was still this hockey god.
Yeah.
In the locker room with him, being like, "Hey,
Oh
man,
my God.
maybe I'll get your number or something." And then
Stop
he just
pushing. Okay,
shut
we're
it
good.
down.
Ray Bork was in one of the great authentic Boston sports moments ever when he gave
Oh,
the
doubt.
jersey to Espo. When they were retiring Esposito's jersey, and Ray Bork was wearing number 7 because they traded Esposito to the Rangers, and there was a little bit of bad blood. So then Bork came in,
what all that
and
was.
a rookie, and he was awesome. And then at some point in the '80s, they had Espo night, and Bork came in, took his jersey off, and he had the 77 underneath, and he just gave Espo his jersey. It's fucking amazing sports moment.
You ever interview Esposito?
No, I've always heard he was kind of lit,
It was.
letting it fly.
Yeah.
You had him on the radio show.
Yeah, back in the
Peace.
thrill. Like, man, we get Esposito for 8 minutes.
Yeah,
We just paid.
just like a crazy Italian guy.
But just the second he's on the air with you, it's just
Yeah.
on. Yeah, he was great.
Let's take a break, and then we have a lot of basketball to hit because today
Nothing. A little Simmons Masters moment, fresh from Augusta. You got anything for us?
Well, I'll tell you this: on Wednesday, I split up with the group I was with, and I was with Nathan and I think Chang, and we just ended up on the fitful watching them putt, and it was Rory, it was Lowry, it was John Rahm, and it was Fleetwood. And in the practice round, you can kind of you just fucking around, you can basically hit with whoever. I think they let them decide a little bit. So the 4 of them were playing, they were all gambling, and they were clear they were buddies. And we were right there when they were all teeing off on the 6th.
Well, he's already in with the 67.
Lowry and Rory were betting. So we were all excited, I wonder what they're betting, and they're kind of keeping track, and just they seemed loose. It was one of the reasons I picked Rory to win, because I was like, Rory seems loose. He's betting with Lowry. This seems good. Fast forward to when he wins today. Lowry was one of the guys waiting for him, almost like he was a family member. I don't know if you saw that. Rory comes off the course, he's hugging different things. He sees Lowry, huge long hug and high fives, and then Fleetwood, same thing. And I was like, oh, those must be that's his Ryder Cup crew, all his dudes. But anyway, it stuck out because we had that moment on Wednesday. We were like, wow, Rory seems loose. This is a good sign because coming off last summer, who knows? All right, we're gonna take a break. We'll talk a little Warriors clips and some playoffs and some All NBA. All right, game of the day, game 82, which I think was a lot more fun last year. This year we knew a lot of the matchups and the records, but we did have this incredible Clippers Warriors game that it's tough. Every time there's a great game, you want to do the game of the year. But I think that actually might have been the game of the year because there were
Settle.
real stakes and both teams really wanted it.
Why is it
Both
bounced
teams
like that?
wanted the rest. I don't even think it was about the matchups as much as can we get 5-6 days off here. The Warriors definitely wanted it because they have an older team, and the Clippers are playing this. You know, they have Kawhi Jenga, and the game was fascinating for a whole bunch of different reasons. The Clippers win, and I'm going to start here because I felt that way before the game. I think the Clippers are the second best team in the West.
Okay.
Counter. Any counter?
Well, the only thing that I would counter is just all the stuff that all of us would say about, okay, well, in the playoffs, like, are they a riskier bet than these other teams? But as far as who is playing the best basketball right now,
Decent
they're
try,
the second best
decent
team in the
try.
West, So I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
Look, last 15 going into today, number 1 offense, number 1 defense. The Kawhi thing is real. March, April, he's playing 36 minutes a game. He's shooting it like crazy. Zoo is one of the
Let's
most
go.
underrated players in the NBA. And
Let's
on top
go.
of everything else, like, you can just see the difference against some of these teams that may want to go small. Because I still think there's like 3
Let's
or 4
go.
teams that would
Bones Jones wants it. Come on,
DC
baby.
can do whatever they want. Houston actually wants to play big. Golden State definitely wants to play small. The Lakers definitely want to play small. And so now that you have this first round matchup,
Well, this is a tough.
like,
This is a
it's
tough.
not like they're gonna be,
This doesn't feel like a
I
birdie
mean,
hole.
some weird stuff would have to happen again, looking at the seeding bowl thing. So it's not like we're just going to run through all these small teams. But if you want to go small against the Clippers, it's going to be a big problem because Zoo is such a huge part of their offense. They trust him more, and he just beats the hell out of you.
Let's talk Zoo because I think it ties into a bigger thing with the Clippers. I think he's going to be on the third team All-NBA for me, and I'll make the case for it later.
That was almost a really, really
But
amazing
I can't
shot.
believe, and I've been
I kinda
watching
misjudged
it
the wind a
carefully
little bit.
last month because it was jumping out at me during games. Started looking at the stats. Started talking to some people, asking.
I might be able to make this, actually.
Zubac's like incredibly important in this team, and is he kind of better than people realize? You watch the game today. He was awesome in that game. I mean, I don't know how many times he defended the rim against somebody and either thwarted a drive or changed somebody's direction on a drive, but it was between 15 and 20. Not to mention the alley-oop stuff, not to mention the rebounds. And he plays big minutes every game, and I think he's played 79
All right,
games.
18th hole. Let's go.
33
A little drama here at the
He's
Corn
got
Ferry
vouchers.
Tour.
So, like, the thing I was thinking with the NBA was, hey, I've had Jaren Jackson in there all year.
Bay Hill,
And I'm
baby.
just watching Zubats going. This guy plays all the time. He stays on the court. He's gotten better as the year goes along. And to me, like the guy that he really reminds me of is Gasol on the Grizzlies. That 2013, 14, 15 era Gasol. He's not the passer Gasol was, but his how he's always in the right positions with his hands up. Players on the other team are always afraid.
Boom.
He grabs. he's
Bones
better rebound
Jones
than Gasol was.
reaches back.
If you watch what the Warriors today, when they were posting up Zubats, the Warriors were reacting and sending a double every time. And the Clippers, when they need baskets, sometimes they run stuff through him so he can set up the other guys.
Let's go.
I think he's the third best center in basketball right now, behind Towns and Jokic. Obviously, Jokic is number 1, but I think he's third. I really do.
Well, if you want to run your offense through him, you can. You can trust him now to catch, depending on where you want to set him up. Because, we saw, there's a few different things, obviously, that happened in the length of an overtime game. But early on, it's like, let's make sure we get some touches. Let's see how Golden State wants to defend this. And so if you double him, he'll get it right out and he can swing it. So you can trust him to do that. If you let him get deeper off of the drive,
Bones!
the best thing
Let's
he's
go.
ever done this entire
Come on, big Bones.
off that high ball screen.
Shit,
And then
bro.
you have
All right, let's make it. It's a
that
breaker,
Bones
though.
basically the big shadowing you. But with Zoo, he doesn't even need to necessarily roll off the high screen. He can be just in the dunker spot, and then that guy comes over to help on the Harden drive because Harden's just so good on that kind of stuff. And then Harden finds these passing lanes. That wraparound that he made going to his left side with his left hand, where it looked like the angle was completely
Bones
shut off.
Jones
And
takes it
run through the numbers.
with the birdie at the last.
Turnovers, really good
Woo!
defense. They get up 36-20.
Hell yeah, what a round.
The second quarter, they bring Zoo back in. They close
That's
it down
letting him know.
22.
That's
There's
letting him
all
know.
sorts of numbers that just point to his impact. And then if you look
It's
at
got to
the best
the point
What
where
a moment.
you almost feel like they have to hold on when he's out. That's how I felt in the fourth quarter. You have these Ben Simmons minutes. And
That's
you're like,
sick.
They just got to make sure they don't fall down 8 before Zubac comes in. Like, that's how important he's become for them. And all the Clipper fans, that's all they talk about. They think he's like the most underrated guy in the league. Like, they're like Scientologists.
I agree with him.
But there was this Ben Simmons stretch.
If you could come speak, Bill, at our Zubac thing,
Is there a Zubac festival?
we have a medal for you.
There was a Ben Simmons stretch where the Warriors were like, you know what, fuck this, we're going zone. Ben Simmons knocked yourself out at the
Oh,
foul line.
was that just
trying to
round
make some
one?
plays, and it was brutal, like legit brutal. And then he finally made one pass and got an assist. But I don't know if that's sustainable for them in the playoffs. Any Ben Simmons minutes. Now they didn't have Batum today, and I think Batum is really important for them. And actually, they can.
Huh.
As crazy as it sounds against the right team, even go super small with
That wasn't the final round.
At all.
There's my brown pants.
I just think the way Kawhi's playing, you mentioned that, was he 24-7 since the All-Star break, and getting shots, getting to his spots.
Well, whatever.
Defensively, he's starting to look not 100% like San Antonio Kawhi, but he's like, you know, it's reminiscent.
I don't know that it's ever going to be that again. So we're being totally fair about that because you're just talking about
He's 33.
A level of intensity.
That was intense. I thought that was the last round. I was taking the trophy. I had no idea what was going on.
It was kind of working, except they weren't corralling the basketball, so they're giving up offensive rebounds, which is one of the problems in the zone anyway, especially if you're small. And Simmons just doesn't really. I mean, this isn't breaking news, but
He's not playable.
when he has to think about what he's doing, it's over. So he was good enough on tapping a couple balls out. He did have that one assist, but he had two other passes on the right side where he tried to throw like a no look at one point,
Right.
and you're just going like, what are you doing right now? But
And nobody's fouling him intentionally either, because that's the other piece you can do in the playoffs. Just try to take him out. Maybe teams wouldn't want to do that because they want him to stay on the court.
to have seen it that way, because I felt the same way. It's like the Clippers have to survive these non-Zubac minutes, especially because Simmons is in there. And the more possessions they probably roll with Simmons, the more it's just guys screaming from the Golden State bench, like, don't even worry about it. Like, if he sets a screen two with the ball, if he cuts through, don't worry about it. Like, he's not going to catch it in the post and then turn around and work us in a mismatch or something. We'll be fine. It's just they really struggle to rebound during that stretch.
It's like the second Pats Giants Super Bowl when Chad Ochocinco was the second receiver for the Pats, and I was at the game, and you could see the entire Giants coverage was like, we don't have to worry about that side of the field. We could just cover him with one guy. The safety doesn't even have to shade over. That's Ben Simmons on offense. You don't have to shade over. It's like, what's he going to do? Can't shoot. Doesn't want to shoot. He's not going to drive to the basket because he just want to get fouled. So they're just trying to survive 5 minutes game. Back to Zubac. So he's plus 9.2 net heading into the game today. By far the best Clipper. He's played 2,600 plus minutes. He leads the league in offensive rebounds. For the year, he's 17 and 13. Since the All-Star break, he's 20 and 13. I think he's had 15 double-doubles in a row. He shoots 65% since the All-Star break. And he stays on the court. That's the thing. Like Jaren Jackson, I just feel like would you be shocked in the playing game if Jaren Jackson has 5 fouls and 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter of the playing game? You wouldn't be, because he can't stay on the court. Zubac contests all the time with his hands up, but he stays on the court. So I don't know. I just think with him and Leonard and Harden, it's not the best big three of the 16 playoff teams, but it's a legitimate big three if Kawhi is going to play this way, I think.
Look, I'm on your side on this one, so I know it would be better if we were to disagree about the whole thing. I mean, clearly Jaren Jackson is a much better offensive game.
The rough
so
bounce.
He's asked to do two
Very
things.
crucial.
I wouldn't even compare the two things. If I were with Memphis, I'd be like, hey, Jaren, you know when the other team gets the ball and they're bringing it up the court, run away from the guy with the ball in his hands. Like, stop.
And maybe
Stop getting these.
grab like one more rebound a quarter would be awesome.
A couple more rebounds would be
Maybe
nice.
get to like 9.
Yeah, but Zoo, if you look at the rim protection stuff, like Chet's off the charts. Porzingis' numbers are incredible, but Zoo's are really good there as well. So,
Yeah.
you know, maybe the downside of Zoo was maybe you can't play 5 out. You know, does it impact some of the driving lane stuff that you want to do if you want to have a Norm, Kawhi, Harden group out there? Because I still feel like that's my favorite default of having any kind of big that can stretch a defense a little bit.
Yeah.
So you have to worry about the shooting, but to have Harden not have a center, as much as it's going to open up some space, like those two guys are just locked in right now. And Kawhi doesn't really need to drive. It's a lot of pull-up stuff with him. And even Jimmy Butler, who's changed the story for the Warriors this season, like you saw when they got one-on-one, he was too big for Butler. He's too big for him. But it's not like Butler's small or like a guy you would question his strength or toughness, but
So glad you brought that up.
Kawhi would get him in some spots like 12 feet in, and you're like, he's going to have a chance. They had to put Draymond back on.
I I noted it because it was weird to see. I don't want to use the word bully, but basketball bully, where he just was too strong for Butler, and you always assume Butler.
finessing the fuck out of the pitching wedge.
240.
Instead of just hit it
A
full.
chance. Well, yes, 6'7", maybe, but a chance. You're thinking, okay, at least I'm matching
Kawhi's
some
like,
of
oh, this is great. Jimmy Butler's on me. He's not afraid of him. He's not going to get in an alpha battle with him. He's just going to do his machine thing. The other piece was Zubats and Harden together. Harden's had this before because he had it on the Rockets with Dwight during the last kind of stages of Dwight's prime, and then Capella too. But I mean, I'm talking big physical centers that are around the rim, and he really used Dwight. I mean, they made the 2015 West Finals. That team was good. I think what he's established with Zubats is pretty great. Like they're really attuned to. They'll run that high screen at the very top, and then Zubats will roll down, and he's almost like a left tackle. He's just like he's kind of barreling into guys, knocking guys over. And Harden always seems to know exactly where he is. I think they're really good. I was talking to a bunch of Clipper fans over the last couple of days, and they were kind of deep down wondering if they were better off going to the 7th seed and winning the playing game than playing Houston. But the rub on that is you don't get the 6 days of rest for Kawhi. So this worked out perfectly. I will say I don't think it would have been a disaster for them if they fell to 7. I think this is worse for the Warriors because I don't think they want to put miles on these dudes, and I think it's creaky to begin with. We've seen some games like they had that 3rd and 4 last week, and that Sunday game where Houston just annihilated them athletically and just seemed like they were 10 years younger than them. So now you're putting miles on them in the Tuesday game with Memphis. Now you're starting the playoffs, so just don't. It's just you're adding miles to a team that doesn't need miles. Curry already looks
Brutal.
you know, I don't know how many injuries he's nursing at this point, but it's at least 3.
They needed this bad for everything you just said, and to see what Steph looked like after that time off, it's a bit like that Kyrie stuff that we used to talk about a couple years ago when Kyrie was going off because he wasn't playing that much. It was
Right.
like,
Once a week, Kawhi.
Yeah, but it was like,
Oh, okay.
I can't
It's
believe
gonna bounce
Kyrie's doing
crazy.
this. Like, look, he's barely
That is
even
not a
playing.
real-
You know, the whole
that's
point
not
is
how that
this
would work.
Fresh,
It's a
like,
blast. It
action.
should check.
Yeah.
You only have to play like once a week, and I'm not even turning into the Kyrie conversation. But I think it's just something to remember when somebody's not available all the time. It actually could be an advantage as opposed to losing your rhythm. So in the games where Steph came back in that Memphis game, I was watching, like, holy shit, like he is flying around, and I don't know that, you know, I'm necessarily like looking at it.
Flop that.
Worried. He had a really slow start. He has 18 to send it to overtime in the first quarter.
What's up,
So it's like,
James?
okay, it's fine. He's relocating the way he should be, and you know, I look at some of the Butler stuff because the record's so absurd.
Thought I blew it.
Since that trade.
Did you watch the Masters, James?
Category.
It was a
But
fun
maybe
one.
going to that game
I'm listening to Bill
because the Lakers,
Simmons.
where he decided to start playing like 14 minutes into the game. I was like, you know, dude, these are.
Thanks for checking in.
Like, granted, they won that game and stuff was brilliant, but you're like, you're gonna need to not be as passive, and he wasn't. I don't
Let's
think
just
at the
power
start of
this.
the time at
We
all.
got
Like, he got it going. I think when they
This
needed
should be
him,
easy.
but overall, Butler's still only taking 10 shots a game. He was taking 10 shots a game with Miami. The metrics are always great for him because
missed it a little
free
to the
throw
right.
rate is
Come on,
so
Wayne.
absurd. But they may, I don't know if it's a, hey, it's playoff Jimmy,
brutal.
so none of it really matters. But there's probably still, even with this great turnaround, probably moments for him where it's
Well,
like
I'm out
you need
here.
to be looking for your stuff a little bit.
I got the angle.
Because
Well,
I
like
thought
in
there
the
were
second
drives.
quarter, it felt like he was taking over the game, and then he just
Right.
didn't shoot again for a while.
Yeah, he'll go through these spells where I would just think that in the postseason and his
Decent.
work over the last few years tells us that he's going to be that guy again. But I think it gets lost in this turnaround because he still is really pacing himself at times offensively. But the fact that he's even there has made Steph's life better because when they were up, just falling apart, it's like, dude, you're asking Steph to run around for 20 seconds and get free, and nobody cares. Like nobody
And his
cares about any of
ability-
these other guys.
The free throws are huge. They stop the game. They put pressure on the other team. He's so competitive. The Clippers are a bad matchup for them. They've been a bad matchup for them for a couple years. I've been to games where I was like, how are the Clippers winning this? They would just be able to turn it on.
Oh boy.
I don't know. I wonder in a weird way if this Memphis playing game is easy for the Warriors, and they get the 2-7 with Houston, and they can somehow, from a health standpoint, be okay. This probably worked out I know not getting the rest sucks, but playing a Houston team that has no playoff pedigree at all. That's like a really, really young playoff team going against Steph and Jimmy and Draymond, right? And you can take that one, and then round two, potentially the Lakers or Minnesota. But if it's the Lakers, I think that Warriors match up really well with the Lakers. They're just going to play small against the Lakers. It's small ball against small ball, and I think they're going to be really comfortable against them.
Yeah, I think you're right about
Oh
that.
boy, look at this shot.
The Lakers who want to play small played
Wow.
Like intentional.
Wow.
Clearly,
Wow.
the Warriors would rather go small, even though they're playing close. Instead of that
Yeah.
5-out guy.
Oh, that's the best shot I've ever hit on this
They
game.
don't play Jackson Hayes. I don't know if that'll be a matchup specific thing for the playoffs, but clearly their preference is Rui at center. And it's not that they're small, right? Because they're big at all their positions.
2 under
Vincent,
on that hole.
Goodwin,
That was
Anthony
sick.
It's like they're actually a really big team, but if they
They're
want,
bulky. They're bulky.
you like their girth.
Yeah, they got a lot of girth.
I was trying to figure all this stuff out this morning. Like I was going through the regular season series, and then who missed how many games, and that ends up.
It's the worst ever.
No, I did it again this year.
Oh,
and I hate myself.
it's a
for it
nightmare.
because even this game with the Clippers and Golden State, it's the first time everybody was ready to go. I mean, Kawhi in some of the other matchups hasn't even played against any of these teams because he came back so much later. And sometimes the schedule works out. It's like, all right, they've already played each other 4
That sucks.
times, but the fourth game was in
Wind was a little
December,
more of a factor
so
than I
what
realized.
does that even mean as you get ready for the playoffs here? But that Houston game, I'm glad you brought up because I was thinking, all right, is there a good part of this? Like I would think the Warriors would rather play the Lakers just because there's not a size thing that's looming like Zubac. Granted, he was going to be in the matchup in the first round.
Oh my
Well, in
god.
this case, would be Şengün. Like,
All of a sudden we're heating up.
dude who would keep Looney out. Because did you notice in that Clipper game, the Warriors were playing really well about 4 minutes left, and Draymond wasn't out there. And it was Looney because they needed him for Zubac, and Draymond was on the bench. And the Warriors, the ball was moving and looked good, and it got to the point where I was like, I wonder if they're gonna bring Draymond in. And then obviously they went to commercial, came back, they brought him in. But that's when he's not out there. Sometimes I'm not saying they're better without him, but there's lineups without him that I kind of like, especially when Podziemski and Butler are flying around. I think Moody's turned into a guy that I really feel like is a guy now. Like defensively, he's really high level, don't you think?
Absolutely, and he deserves a ton of credit for turning himself into this. But I mean, he had plays where he stripped Norm just one-on-one at the top of it as they were trying to get another offense. He had the block on the left side. It's just Moody's definitely, you're right, like he's turned himself into somebody that Kirk can probably trust depending on what the perimeter matchups are there. But I think that Houston win in Golden State, going back not that long ago, just a few days ago, it was
A week ago.
Yeah, he's 1 of 10. Like that's one of those Butler games where I'm like, does he need to take more than 7 shots in 33 minutes? Sometimes
Look at this shit.
Lost the free throws, but only took 4 free throws in that one, and you had
Big
42 shot
swinger.
attempts between Podziemski, Hield, and Payton. Where
I asked
they
around-
shot it well, but that's probably not what you want. And they sold out. I mean, Houston did a terrific job of not only Amen being on him, but making sure that wherever he was going, there was going to be a second defender there.
God
So yeah,
dang
it's
it.
kinda your
And they were
call.
super
Like,
physical.
is it better to be against them because they don't have the big that scares you, or is it we're going to throw a million athletes with a ton of length at Steph, and so when we're done with the men, then it's going to be Tari, and then we're going to have Brooks beat him up for a little bit here. Like that's where Butler, you're probably going, we need you to take 16 shots tonight in these games.
Yeah, that game they played Thursday, Friday, and again, older team, and they just seemed like they had no legs from that Houston game. But that's also the fear if you're playing Houston, because that team is always going to have energy. They're a really tough team. One of the things I love.
They had a day off though. They had a day off in between there.
Yeah, I know.
After
But I'm
Denver.
saying the Thursday, Friday, those were 2 tough ones in a row because they're playing, contenders. But
No,
Ime,
you're right. Those were big time games.
Ime will definitely. He's proven he does not kowtow to the super duper stars in the league. He likes to start shifting to them, talk to them, likes to get his guys fired up to go against them. And they have a bunch of pit bulls to throw at Curry. They have a low post guy that's going to either force Draymond to have to guard a center, or, they could go that double big lineup, which I think is not going to be easy for the Warriors. I don't love the matchup for them. Man, that
Well.
that Rockets playoff inexperience.
Well,
You saw it today. I kind of feel like they wanted that Nuggets game. Did you watch the first half of that? Did you have that on?
Yeah, you could look and say they waved the white flag, but it's because they were getting beat. They were
They
down
were getting,
20.
they were getting their ass kicked. They
And then it was
played
game one
everybody, and
time.
they were playing hard. They wanted the game. I think, knowing a little bit about Ime, I think he was like, "Look, this is a playoff game for us. Let's treat it like a playoff game. Let's see what we got." And they sucked. So not awesome for them. And conversely, that was the
Pushed
best
it.
game I've seen Denver play
Short, straight putt.
in a while. And maybe this new coach thing, if you read about all the dysfunction that was going on behind the scenes, maybe there's something to it. It's like peeling off a huge Band-Aid and just being like, fuck it.
Still playing well, though.
I don't think it'll happen this time around, but we've lost Steph in the playoffs twice because of the play-in setup.
What do you mean? Oh, for
So,
LA.
He's 0-3 in play-in games.
Is that true? Oh
Remember,
my God, you're right.
He lost to the Lakers, and then because they lost to the Lakers, they had to play Memphis, and he had 37 and 39 in those games, and they lost. And then in 24, he lost to Sacramento last year.
Well, the good news is
Yeah, those Golden State teams weren't very good though.
Just awful. I mean, you're not catching a team at a better time than this. Whatever is happening with this Grizzlies team right now. So I'm not too concerned about the Warriors. They did something weird that I don't remember with the schedule, and I'm excited to talk about the matchups. There's no Thursday game this year, which I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case the last couple years. Most of the playing games are Friday. Maybe they did that before and I just forgot. So if for some reason the Warriors lost that Tuesday game, they'd have to play Friday and then immediately on Sunday, which would not be awesome for them. Can we talk about all the matchups that came out of this quick? So Warriors Rockets, which we hit.
Oh, why is
do you
it?
share my same concerns with Houston? Like, yeah, I know it's in there, but playoffs are a different animal.
Why is it going that direction?
Go to, or do you think there's something more there that I'm not seeing?
I think they're really good, but we're looking at a 2 seed that over the course of 82 games, it's kind of like our Erno ambush talking about Memphis.
Yeah.
Where it was like, hey, they were the 2 seed, hey, they were the 2 seed before all this stuff. I mean, it's like 3 years you can point to it, like, hey, being the 2 seed. The 2 seed some years sounds way better years removed than the reality of like what the records were of the teams that year. Denver was a 1 seed that year when Memphis was a 2 seed, and I think Denver had 53 wins in 23 when they won the title. And then if you go through the rest of the seeding, I mean, that's why it's so crazy to kind of look back and you're like, hey, Memphis was the 2 seed, well, they had 51 wins. Sacramento was a 3 seed with 48 wins. 48 wins now in the West would put you either 7 or 8 seed. Yeah. So
Conference
three
was so
seed.
much weaker and more injuries, all kinds of stupid stuff.
So look, I definitely will have hesitation about big boy playoff closing offensive minutes
Going for it.
the Houston Rockets.
The reasons are unclear.
Completely fair, and I think Udoka will decide on
That
the fly.
is slow as
I
not
would be
good. That
shocked
worked
if
out.
it's a steady closing.
Didn't actually know what I was doing there, but it
during
worked out.
Clutch time for them, where I think he'll go with some guys and he'll abandon others. He won't give a shit, which is actually probably the best thing you can hope for with a coach. Where he's like, this night. I mean, we did a conversation on it, right, about this exact topic, and
Too hard.
I
God
was
damn it.
giving a shit.
Why am I
It's
overswinging?
another one. That night, I think the next night, he benched Jalen Green with 5 minutes to go in the game and then brought him in with 11 seconds left because they were down. The game was already over. It was like, can you get us a bucket here? So
Yeah.
Jalen's probably the best option still with Van Vliet, but I don't know, man. I've seen enough of him this year to know that it gets clogged, despite how great their record was in the clutch. Do you have anything else?
It's a team that looks better when they're up 10. I think this series will, set the standard for lobbying the press between games to get whatever agenda you want from the next game. Kerr's going to be working hard the whole Houston Hold staff away from the ball. They're too physical with him. They're getting away with stuff. They'll send clips. They'll do that whole thing, and then there'll be a backlash to that. And I just think it's going to be a war of words. But you also have Dylan Brooks in this series. Pretty storied history with Golden State. You have a Golden State Houston history that's pretty good. So if this is what we end up with, and a weird matchup where you have against a team that doesn't really want to play with size, and then older perimeter guys against this kind of new wave of perimeter guys who we haven't really seen in the spotlight like this. So
Almost.
um,
Pretty good though.
it's a good one. I would personally still take Golden State if I had to. Do you want to guess the line? Oh, they don't have a line for that yet. I do have
We don't know
lines.
the matchup for Memphis.
I do have
Golden
lines
State.
for the other two. Have you looked or no?
I haven't.
Okay, let's play quick guess the lines. Trademark Cousin Sal.
I'll say
Lakers,
Okay, go ahead.
Lakers, Minnesota. LAS home court. What do you think the line is?
Whoa.
I'm saying it right now.
That worked out.
For the series, Lakers minus 185.
Wow, that was really good. Minus 172. We'll talk about that in 1 second. Denver Clippers. What do you have? Denver as home court.
I'm gonna say Clippers. This has been going on for a while. This is like a month of this. Okay, so this isn't new. I almost feel like this might be closer to Clippers minus 200.
Denver as home court.
Oh, so they're just going with the home court part of this?
I'm
Denver's
just
the favorite.
a right.
Clippers minus 150 then.
Nuggets minus 144. Sounds like we have some wagers to make. I felt the same way. I thought it would be like a pick'em, and maybe it will be by the time we get there. Clippers and 6 is an interesting bet. And then in the East, which you probably already know.
That actually shocks me. I mean, I realize that it's Denver, and I know that it's Jokic, which I learned from one of the playoff previews on ESPN. But this Clippers thing is fucking real, man. So, but are we tricking
No, we're not.
ourselves?
We're not.
Okay, right. If Kawhi gets hurt, we all understand what is potentially in play for a guy that's in street clothes to close out the last 4 years, I think, in the playoffs. But are we tricking ourselves into believing that the elevated pace, understanding Harden's tendencies more, the deer in the headlight game 2 or game 4 from him, and then we see it and we go, how could you have ever picked this team? Because I'm going to pick him against Denver. I don't know how far I'm going to go with it, but I'm going to pick him against Denver.
I'm 100% picking them against Denver, and it feels like we're in a Law and Order SVU episode where it's like, I've watched this exact episode 13 times. Why do I think it's not the dead lady's husband because he's a doctor and he seems like a great guy?
But they have to go back. They have to go back.
Yeah,
Is it the country club?
Don't go back to the hospital. He's fine. This guy loved her. That's how I feel about like the Clippers. It's like, this is the year Kawhi stays healthy. This is the year James Harden isn't going to shit on himself in the playoff series. So we got this.
Is there anything to, because I want to ask you this question, Harden not having to be the one because of Kawhi? And it's like, okay, but that was supposed to be Embiid, so Harden wasn't supposed to be the one in the Sixers series. But then we could have this whole other Embiid playoff discussion that we don't have to do this year. Is there anything to the importance of him being reduced going in that makes you feel better?
100%. Well, there's two things that make me feel better about him. One is that this is the best supporting cast for him that I can remember him having. It's all the things you would want to put around him if we were just like, I'm going to come over to your house. Let's spend the next 2 hours picking types of players that you would want to put around James Harden.
Let's
right?
definitely do that, yeah.
I'll come over tonight. But you'd want a rebounding center who could finish around the basket and finish the alley-oops. You'd want an older star who could be like, I've got this. That's Kawhi. You want some streaky shooters, right? That's Norm Powell. That's who's the other streaky shooter on that team? I'm blanking.
Derrick Jones Jr.
I guess he is kind of streaky. And then you want like length to protect him on defense.
And then
so
Chris
that he didn't have to
Dunn.
play defense. And then the Chris Dunn piece. I just really like the roster. I think they did an awesome job.
I think we probably do a little bit better.
Jones.
Stanton's coming back.
Well, I'm just saying, realistically, if you're using the salary cap,
Yeah,
and you
okay,
have to
alright,
put
fine.
together a team, it's gonna probably look something like this. But yeah, the Kawhi thing. This is what all the Clipper fans I know. They're like, it's a yeah, but it just is. Every year he's pulled the rug out from under them, and every year they believed and thought he was going to be finally. This is, and then the rug gets pulled out. So
Yep.
this is like year 6 of this for them.
So you're saying better than Westbrook and then PJ Tucker at center?
It's like, I think so. What's
And the death screens from Zoo? Like, you run into one of his screens, you're going to get a step.
He, the other thing with them is I just don't, this Denver bench, I'll say this. I refuse to believe Westbrook won't be heard from in the wrong way in a Clippers-Nuggets series. He's just looming in the wrong way because there's going to be a game, there's going to be a Jamal Murray has to come out because his knee's not feeling great, somebody's in foul trouble, or Westbrook's just going to be involved. And I've seen enough with him in crunch time. I don't think he's somebody that can be out there in the final 4 minutes of a big game.
I don't know if he will. I think that Sacramento game that might have been this past week. No, I think that was a sign.
Bones Jones got
that
this.
Was a sign.
Bones Jones on fire.
When they drove and picked
This is a
it.
tough course. We're Bone Jonesing it up.
I think it's like never been in any games. Like that's the thing.
Totally
Jesus, that makes me more nervous. I don't know which one I would want less.
Just
Probably
like
pick it.
full statement on this.
Yeah.
Westbrook's actually taking, I think, too much shit on this.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Russillo backs Westbrook.
Now, if you're
Aggregators.
telling me he had to
Oh my
not make
gosh.
any mistakes all season, okay, fine. And the fact that I think game of the year is still the overtime 60-point triple-double from Jokic against Minnesota because you had Ant and Jokic dueling each other. But you're right, the stakes are not the same as game 82, but that's my favorite game of the season. And you have the Westbrook layup for not killing clock or then the foul at the end. But because everybody was watching that game, because it's one of the best games of the entire year, then it started turning to like if you're expecting a mistake-free experience from him, then just pick a different guy. Look, even Steph, who I love, he had 2 bad turnovers late in this game. He got caught in the corner. He had another thing he was trying to do in the baseline, but the 18 points kind of makes up for that a little bit. But with all of this, because of his history, where it felt like every place he's gone, post OKC, couldn't wait for him to get out. Although I'd say
Turns into
Washington,
the half and half in the fridge that you have to sniff. And you're like, oh, I gotta throw this out.
although I think Wizards fans enjoyed it. I think Wizards fans enjoyed when he was there. So I would add that one to like the positive part of this. And sure, should Malone have let him gone to LA and get the vet treatment that the other guys did? I don't know. Like whatever. I don't think that's why they fell apart. But he's being
How
thrown
those
into
shots
the
work?
storyline of this a few times. Oh, well, Westbrook also did this, and there was some complaints over the minutes. I've been, maybe because my standards or expectation for him are so low, he's done the best job he's ever done in his career post OKC accepting his role.
We agree. I'm just saying.
You can't believe him saying it?
No, if he's the 6th most important person on your team, there might be some issues at this point in his career. We should have mentioned him earlier at the top when we were talking about people taking the mantle for Rory now that Rory's won. Who would be the best people? Westbrook, kind of rising up as a super sub in the playoffs, helping drag
It's
the
not the
Nuggets.
same, though. It's not the same. Like, if Chris Paul gets a ring next year, by the way, shout out Chris Paul, 82 games.
82 games.
If he gets a ring now, it doesn't mean, like, hey, I was right. So, I also don't know that Rory had as many stops, as many tumultuous stops as Westbrook did. So, I don't know if that one works.
Westbrook 10 years from now, it's going to be great for him when it's a little like what's happened to Carmelo and some others where we just forget all the bad stuff. Like Russell Westbrook, he's a problem. MVP, triple double.
Are you anticipating kids don't even know clips?
I think it could be
Oh.
there.
And if you put together those, they're going to be like, wonder how many rings did he have?
This guy had
6.
25 rebounds in a game. I'm convinced the Clippers will beat the Nuggets and also fully expect something heartbreaking to happen for them. It's one of those I'm going to bet the Clippers and probably.
We're gonna go with the
regret betting
spinner.
it.
I have no idea what to
We're gonna
expect
take
here.
a break and then we're gonna talk a couple of the other playoff series here. This episode is brought to you by Michelob
Experiment.
Ultra. Spring is here. My favorite time of the year. That means the NBA playoffs
Just guessing.
are here too. What am I the
Spinner
most excited
alert.
about? I'm excited to see if the Celtics can defend their title. I'm excited to see if Steph Curry and Jokic can keep going and going and going round after round. I'm excited for the potential of an LA versus LA playoff series. It's never happened. Clippers Lakers. Never in my lifetime. Is OKC for real? Is Cleveland for real? Is SGA going to prove that he is the best scoring guard in the postseason, basically, since Michael Jordan? Since Kobe Bryant? Is he on that level? We're all going to find out. There's plenty to look forward to on and off the court. like Michelob Ultra Courtside. That's another thing. It's getting fans closer to the game with unique prizes. Plus, they're giving you a chance to win tickets to the NBA Finals. You heard me. The NBA Finals.
Oh,
which I hope
that
are
is a little
awesome.
off the mark.
Just head to MichelobUltra.com/NBA Finals. Michelob Ultra Courtside
That's a
NBA
problem.
Finals sweepstakes. No purchase necessary. Open U.S. residents, excluding Maryland residents, 21 and up. Begins 9 a.m. ET on February 16, 2025. Ends on May 5th, 2025. See official rules at MichelobUltra.com/rules for price and details. Message and data rate may apply. Void where prohibited. All right, so we got Minnesota Lakers. This feels like a win for the Lakers, and I'm not sure who I would have wanted to play the least if I were them, but because it basically came down to the Clippers, Golden State, or Minnesota. They were going to play one of those teams being in the 3 spot. And Minnesota, I think, feels like the right outcome for them because I don't know how Gobert exists in this series. So let's start there. How does Gobert exist in this series?
Oh man, I mean, Luka was funny when he was tearing up. Did you hear about this? They asked him which moment got him in the tribute video, and he was like, "When I hit that step back on Gobert." Gobert played it great.
Yeah.
Dudes hate Gobert. Kevin Porter Jr. not afraid to get into it with everybody. Just actually important for Milwaukee lately. Been playing some good basketball.
Getting into it with
everybody.
What happens if
Wow, no bogeys. Oh, amazing. Awesome.
have security guards on hand for every game?
Beef Stew's just like, look, first practice, new guys, we beat the shit out of you. But it's just sort of like, I don't know if you saw Colors,
Fun.
the movie. Like, we're just gonna have to like initiate shit. So, ice up.
So don't look at me.
I think you're right about that because it's a bit like the Ime thing that we were talking about there with Finch. Like,
pro pass,
times a year, like, felt like he was sick of Randall. Randall's probably the best.
I was just playing this last round. I'm tired as
They
fuck.
needed him huge in that Memphis game. He was
See what the next
fantastic when they just ran away
thing
from
is.
the Grizzlies. Gobert is like, especially in that matchup, he's closing. But I do wonder with the stuff that we're talking about, how the Lakers prefer to be real perimeter based. If it'd be a situation where they're going to be, bringing Rudy out. Because like the best part about Rudy is the guy's
Let's get this
swings
trophy.
off, plays his ass off. He hustles like crazy, but nobody wants to pass to him. And then if he gets caught in a switch hunting season, then it could be. I think like Houston, Bill. I think Minnesota.
Right, you need like a Shengu and Adams combo to make sense in a series. This, they're just going to play Luka and LeBron and Rui as much as they possibly can. With Reeves and pick a guard. And they're just going to spread them out. JJ, as we've discussed many times, his coaching staff's done a really good job at figuring out what the matchup is and then how to exploit. They're going to exploit him. They're going to play him off the court. But that's going to lead to Minnesota probably ending up with Naz Reid and Randall and McDaniels and Edwards and DiVincenzo if they want size, or Kame if they don't care about it, as the 5 they're going against. And that's going to be hard for the Lakers defensively, I think. They're going to have all these different attack moves. They're going to probably try to get Edwards in as many switches as they possibly can against Reeves. And they're going to have the same shooting stuff. And I actually think this will be a higher scoring
too hard.
series than I think people realize. Because people think of
Or
Minnesota as
not.
this awesome defensive team.
That just
Take
died.
Gobert
Okay.
out of it, it changes a little bit. But I think Minnesota has a real chance in this series.
I think you're kind of shortchanging the perimeter guys, though, from what we've seen in the playoffs last year.
The Minnesota perimeter
Engaged
guys.
defensively, Jaden's really good on the ball against somebody small. The problem is him on the ball against Luka. Like, I think
We
you
saw
need
it
girth
already.
against him. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, with Jaden's defensive resume, which I think all of us really like, that's probably not.
Oh, no. Don't tell me Bones Jones is gonna nail this from deep.
Let's take out Reeves. Let's try to take out Reeves as much as we possibly can, because Luka and LeBron are gonna get all their stuff out.
From way downtown
Just make sure
on the
Reeves
first
doesn't
hole.
get when they have those spots where like
Forget about Stanton. At least
Reeves together. When it's
Steele wouldn't want to be a.
like, look, we gotta take out Reeves. They're never gonna stop. The thing that worries me more from Minnesota is Randall, who, as you mentioned, has been really good the last 4, 5, 6 weeks.
This hole is
Part of it
stupid.
because he's so physical, and he's especially if you guard him with anybody smaller, he guys have more size than he does. You know, so then it comes down to if you're looking at scoring and the end of the game stuff, it's gonna be a lot of Edwards, and we've seen mixed results with that. When Edwards is like in the high 20s, you know, if he has a 31.
It's impossible
field
at
goal
this
game.
green. Impossible.
I never really like Minnesota as much. I like when it's a little more democratic with the ball usage.
The other thing too,
Finney
three
Smith
of
on
their
Edwards
games,
too.
3 of their games were October 22nd, December 2nd, December.
No, I looked this up.
13th,
Yeah,
right?
we didn't even see like both full teams that we have now against each other, so we have no idea what to expect.
No, but I think attacking Luka is going to happen, you know, but they're probably just going to double and then go, all right, the McDaniels, Conley minutes.
12 feet still to go.
We'll go ahead and shoot, and if we get burned by that, fine. Maybe it changes with DiVincenzo. And then I think there's just a lot of room for Randall here because you're going to sell out to stop Ant, you're going to keep Ant with the ball and all this stuff. You're going to have to help out.
Drano, baby.
You know, it depends like LeBron energy level. You know, it's fascinating because you went to that game when he came back against Chicago, and it would make sense he had times off, but he moved so well.
We are back.
in that game. And then you can turn the Lakers game 2 nights later, and you're like, what's going on? And then against Dallas,
We saw him last week.
yeah, I
Did you
know.
go a couple games ago?
I did.
How did he do?
It was fine, but there's like really he knows how to use himself better than anybody in the entire league. Like this is like year 4 or 5 we talked about him. Like, yeah, he kind of makes spots. It's like, all right, yeah, he had 30, 12, and 11 again. So he's doing fine. And I imagine that his intensity on some of the defensive stuff where I don't know that he can get away with the kind of switching where it's like, hey, you go like I'm already here, so I don't have to move one switch or I'm gonna pre-switch something and get out of it ahead of time so that I'm not in this thing over and over again. I think the regular season you get away with some of that stuff. I don't know that that would happen in playoffs. I imagine his intensity and the time off and it's just an easier schedule than what you have in the regular season, even with the great intensity. No, we always seem to forget that. It's like, hey, these built-in days off, you're staying in the same place for a little while.
Yeah, you get like 3 days off between game 1 and game 2 after you've already gotten a week off. It's perfect.
So I think it's expected that he's going to be more intense with all this kind of stuff, but it may come down to like the Rui part of it, where Gobert has to respect him and his shooting from 3. So if Rui's in the screen or something like that, it's like, okay, well I can't ignore this guy. Like, and that might be the difference in all this stuff because you
Rui
know
on your first team? Is Rui on your first team? I can't believe how much I ended up liking this guy.
well, I would say
Because I was starting at about a 0 with him.
yeah,
That's
that's
something about an 81.
everything we're always talking about is based on like where were you before? Like you really like to know he was an 11 out of 100. Yeah, he was like 50. So yeah, that's
I like his competitiveness, and I do think when he's good, if he's good in a game, they become really hard to beat.
I thought
If he has it going, it's like, oh shit.
he reminded me a lot of Cat. Like you sit there and say, well, Cat was a good matchup for Jokic. And you go, all right, well, yeah, it's 30 points. It's really the difference in these playoff games is Jokic is going to get his 30. Was it an easy 30 or was it a hard 30? And I think Cat at least provided some kind of resistance to him. And I thought that regular season game where the Lakers put it on, they're really good on how they didn't want to space the floor defensively. And a lot of that started with Rui being tasked. Can you just at least challenge him on catches? And can you make him have to work a little bit more? And I thought he had a really good game.
Well, we had a lot of time to talk about that series. In the East, we ended up with Pistons, Knicks. We ended up with Bucks, Pacers. Pacers are -230 favorites over the Bucks, which I think is factoring in people see game win. But the way Giannis has played the last couple weeks, and there's a weird energy to him now that I kind of like. Did you see all the stuff he did in the Pistons game?
I watched the whole game. I loved it.
There was, and there's been signs of this before. He's done this in the past a couple times because I think the perception is, let's just say, such a sweetheart of a guy. He's actually kind of a little bit nastier than I think people realize. But in that Pistons game, he was really like fucking with them. And it got me excited for the Indiana series because Indiana has a better team. They've been playing better for 3 months. They have home court. They're gonna push the pace. I think they're gonna make it really hard for the Bucks guards just to even bring the ball up and start the offense. But yet Giannis is on a tear. see. We'll see what happens. Could Giannis beat the
Sure, like getting
Pacers?
close to that water.
Basically by himself would be the scenario. I wouldn't bet against it. Would you?
No, I wouldn't, because I feel like we're going to look back at this Giannis stretch and go, he only won one MVP out of this whole thing. I mean, granted, everybody's going to remember what Jokic is doing here, but this is almost like a Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali thing. Because I look at the numbers, and it's not like when you watch it, it deceives you. It's just so stupid how good he is. And if you are not ready for it, I know this isn't new, but watching that Detroit game in particular, because I want to see how it playing out. Kane was coming off the great Knicks finish, so I wanted to see kind of how they're going to defend him, and then kind of looking like playoff seeding, wondering what you could have as a potential matchup with all this stuff. But he's going crazy the whole time, which is my favorite thing about him, is that he is that competitive. So when he blocks
What?
Beasley's shot,
Why? Why are we? Why is it?
himself the entire 2 fucking hours of the basketball game.
Yeah.
So they were already gotten into
And
it.
they played together.
Easy putt.
Right,
Missed.
Kevin Porter Jr. dunks on Duran, which was filthy, lets him have a little bit. Duran comes down, screens the shit out of him. Porter doesn't like it. Porter runs right into him and hits him in a way like only a smaller player can get away with doing that to a bigger guy, and then it causes kind of melee. Like Giannis at that point was like, all right, like he is one of those guys. I don't think he gets enough credit for like when you piss him off. I'm not saying it's Jordan, but there's an alarm that goes off. Like once Giannis is pissed off in the game. So he's just going to have to get pissed off, I guess, 4 times in this. Can something happen to him enough where it just becomes unstoppable? Because they are the better team. I think the Bucks are still searching for it. And, you know, even with Kevin Porter getting some better nights out of it, like that's asking a lot of that.
40-plus minutes in that one game?
Asking him to cover in a playoff rotation and like, hey, don't have this fall apart. Because there's other times, I'd say a couple weeks ago, I was like, what is Doc doing? And clearly Doc was like, I may need this dude. And we know how talented he is. So he was letting him kind of run the show. That Houston game comes to mind when he was just a disaster. But he's played better. But then I'm like, okay, so the Pacers, who I really like all their depth.
Oh my god, why do I push it every time on this?
Milwaukee, with them still trying to kind of figure this thing out on the fly.
You know, in my favorite sports book ever, Breaks in the Game, which is about a Trailblazers season, the 79 and 80 season. Bill Walton's gone, and Dr. Jack Ramsey's trying to figure out what the team's identity is and just can't figure it out. And then near the end of the season, they bring up this guy, Billy Ray Bates, who becomes like one of the best characters in the book. And he's just like basically this one-on-one ISO guy who doesn't play anything like the Dr. Jack style at all. He's not like, you know, I pass, I cut. He's just like a one-on-one guy, but they're starting to play better with him. And Dr. Jack has this crisis of philosophy of, this guy, I don't know, he gives us the best chance to win. Let's start running plays for him. He starts really playing them. I almost feel like that's the Porter thing with Doc, where he's just like, I'm out of moves. Like, if this Porter thing doesn't work, we're fucked. This guy can create shots for himself and other people, and he plays hard. And
Pushed it again.
I guess we're gonna have to use him if Dame doesn't come back, because their best lineup has Porter in it now. So we'll see.
Yeah, because he is that good at getting wherever he wants on the floor. His athleticism, finish, all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, is there a Lopez conversation on how that plays out? Is Kuzma going to play great in the first half? Was Prince enough shots? You know, AJ Green's clearly going to get minutes because he's a major part of the rotation. It is funny, though, when you think about the Pacers and why you pick against them. Since the All-Star break, they're 8th in defense, which feels like impossible. Like, that group's figuring it out defensively enough. And Milwaukee's, 16th. But they had a good record. I mean, they closed 19-10.
They're 8th in defense and 1st in stupid losses.
Oh my
That
god,
would be
what
the
is
other case
wrong?
for Milwaukee. I think they need 3 honest games, and then 1 game where Indiana does what they do, which is just to completely fuck up a winnable game and do 2 stupid things in the last minute, and you can't believe they lost. So that's the recipe, I think. But Giannis, like, you know, I had Tatum 3rd MVP all year, and
I don't know how you put anybody ahead of Giannis.
no, I think that's my point. These last 4 weeks, like, Giannis has to be 3rd. He just has to. And I love the Tatum year, and we've talked about it many times. I just think he's been awesome. I think he's been awesome as a two-way guy, as a rebounder. I think he's 5th in points. He's top 20 in rebounds. He's top 20 in assists. It's like, maybe fifth in threes. Like he's guarded everybody in the league. But what Giannis did the last 4 weeks, I think he has to be third. And then if you're putting him third, this will be his 7th straight first team All NBA. And during those 7 years, he's averaged 30, 12, and 6. And this year he's averaging 30, 12, and 7. So this is like LeBron level consistency where people 50 years from now will be on whatever the version of Basketball Reference is. I'm sure it'll be some sort of AI tablet that you can just touch with your hand and it just comes out of the thin air. People will be looking at this like, Jesus Christ. But this Giannis guy, it's like the same way you look at Karl Malone seasons down. It's like, oh my God. He put up 29 and 10 for 12 years.
This will be what? This will be 7. I mean, to me, he should finish third in the MVP, and I feel bad, putting him there because of how special he is. But whatever, he's been great, top of the MVP class this year. But it's going to be 7 straight years the top 4 finish in MVP, and you start putting that resume up against like the Birds,
all
the Magic,
timers, yeah.
right?
Yeah, he's pretty near that vicinity now of that Shaq, Hakeem, Moses area in the all-time grouping. He's not there yet, but I think if he keeps going for a couple more years, this pace could happen. Did you land on Mitchell fit for the MVP spot, or did you have somebody else? Or are you still figuring it out?
Nah, I'm still figuring it out. We still have what, like 4 days?
Yeah, I'm still figuring it out too. Because normally when on the Sunday pod we would do a lot of our picks, but I'm not.
I'm glad we're not.
Stuff.
I was like, oh no, are we doing this today?
No,
like, I have for defensive player of the year. I'm pretty sure I already know what I'm doing, but specifically on the defensive stuff, like I'm fine with all the other things, but defensive stuff, I want to be able to make the rounds and talk to enough people. I just don't want to miss anything. I don't want to be sitting there and look at defensive box score and going, well, this guy was better than this guy.
If I gave you 2 of James Harden, Tyrese Halliburton,
I don't know why this just works better.
and I can only have 2 spots for third team All NBA, though you're a modern All NBA voter where you're just pick the best guys. You don't care about the facsimile of a fake team.
I mean, I don't know that that's true. I feel a bit like the college football playoff commissioner, where I'm never going to give you an answer. I'm not going to talk about conferences being better than other conferences. I'm going to say that all of it's factored in. This is important. That's not important.
So there's no set strategy.
I have fundamental beliefs, but each year's a different field. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm prioritizing this all the time because one year it may not matter as much. The standings thing, I know at you guys a couple weeks ago, you didn't seem like that very much, but I was watching.
I never like being you guys.
Yeah.
I never take anything personally, though.
No, that's true. But
well, I mean, with you.
No, but I was watching Zach, right?
Yeah.
Fired up to have him on the team, and he was talking about his MVP vote. And he was like, I've been SGA all season long, and now I'm just starting to think, like, how can I not vote for Jokic?
This is what I brought to you last week. I'm really struggling with this, and I don't have a pick yet. I don't.
You haven't decided who you're going to vote for
not.
MVP?
It's like, honestly, 50-50 for me. I watch
But it's
Jokic,
the standings, right? But it's the standings, and I think there's times you maybe, could it be the tiebreaker for an All NBA? I don't think that's necessarily wrong, but I don't know, man. I'm not having a hard time with this one. I'm voting for Jokic.
Oh, you've officially decided?
Yeah, I decided a while ago, and I wouldn't say anything's happened recently where I'm like, oh, I'm wrong.
I went back through all the MVPs that bothered me over the years, and over and
Which
over.
one's number 1?
Well, just over and over again, the standings-driven ones are the ones where we get in the most trouble, where we don't just divest ourselves completely and be like, who's actually the most valuable player, right? Like if you the problem with the SGA candidacy, and he's been amazing, and we've talked about, he's having one of the best guard offensive seasons in the history of basketball. But if you gave Jokic SGA's 2 through 12, I'm pretty sure he would be able to win 65 to 70 games with the team that SGA has. And that's where it gets dicey. Now, they're a top 5 team. I never want to have an MVP unless it's a team that has a good record, that it's at least in the vicinity, right? They're 1 game away from being a 3 seed. they're one of the 8 or 9 best teams in the league. But when you see all the dysfunction they clearly had the whole year, and over again, you just why he would just, despite the odds, would just keep it together, and it was amazing to watch. And it's gonna be the first thing I remember about this season was watching him this year. So that to me, like that was one of my, when I wrote my MVP column, it was like 4 things. What are you gonna remember first when you remember this season? For me, it's what Jokic did with this fucked up Nuggets team that fired their coach with a week left, and he had like the greatest offensive season I've seen since Jordan played. So it's like I that's what I'm struggling with, because SGA's won 68 games and he was awesome.
So dysfunction boost, is that new?
Dysfunction boot? Well, yeah, it's like what, like, was it even more dysfunctional than we could ever imagine? We heard, we knew all this shit, but I don't know what it's like to play in a basketball team where you have this much animosity behind the scenes. Like maybe it doesn't matter as much as we think. I don't know. It would seem like it would matter some, and it seems like they were really, really genuinely tired of Malone, which was a whole other issue beyond the whole. He's not communicating with the GM. He's spitefully playing people that the GM likes or not playing, like whatever all that other shit. But
Stanton's making his
the
move.
fact that they almost got to 50 wins with how Murray looked the first 2 months, like it's kind of incredible in the West.
They did. Today was 50 wins.
50 wins with the season they had with all. We did that live show in Denver. When was that? Beginning of December. And we led with a whole thing about Jamal Murray had like 8 awful weeks at that point, and that was like one of our lead things where we were like, let's have an honest conversation about this. What if he's never going to be the same?
Next year, like Murray's lighting it up or whatever, then national broadcast will be like, he still never made an All-Star game. Be like, okay, do you want to go through the years again?
This is like the LeBron MVP thing.
Yeah.
Or the Kobe MVP thing is actually worse.
I think Jokic's the best player in the world. I think his stats are close enough, depending on which metrics you want to look at, if not superior to SGA's. And it'd be one thing if they were a disastrous team on the season, but I didn't really have a hard time with him.
He's going to be the first thing I remember about this season. I've never seen, and
More so than Shireman, the way he's closed.
well, that's been pretty good. That's been watching some of the Joe Maz lineups. Yeah, I was bummed that it's Clippers Nuggets because I have a vested interest in the Clippers advancing because I want to go to the games, right? But I love Jokic and I want to keep playing because I like watching him. So I've just never the stuff that he did this season. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen somebody do more for their team. It's like, what the fuck else can he got every rebound. He led the offense up. He took all of the shots in crunch time. Like he literally did everything. Jalen Williams think he was an All-NBA guy or no? Just in general. Is he good
Not
enough?
ready to answer that. He's certainly on the list. Are you?
I have him tentatively in there right now because I think with the season OKC had and the season Cleveland had, I find it hard to believe you can't get too. As you know, I gravitate a little bit more toward the records, which is and I'm between Dort and Mobley for defensive player of the year. I haven't decided either, but those are my 2 finalists.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning Dort.
It's another one of those. I can only judge what I've watched on TV and what I've seen in person, and I just thought he was the guy that jumped out to me this year. Daniels a little bit too, but I think some of the stuff Daniels did just because it was so unique. Just to watch somebody check somebody from 40 feet to the basket, like literally haven't seen that. His hands were everywhere. His anticipation, it was awesome. But that just wasn't a good enough defensive team. So you basically have to be Wembanyama at that point. The thing with Dort is it's just like, it's like old school pickup basketball. Like, who's their best guy? It's that guy. Lou, you're going to defend him. Don't let him score. And then the guy doesn't score.
Just
the guy has
refuse to
the
be
worst night of his
screened.
life.
Yeah. I normally always am gonna I just think it's hard to have a perimeter guy and say this perimeter guy is as valuable as this other guy is. That's a big who's coming over to help with the rim. In the times when we can switch out a perimeter guy that holds up really well. So I've kind of struggled with the Dort thing, but I will tell you, again, defensively on these awards, I like to talk to people because it's just the one you don't want to miss. And it's a hard award to feel like, okay, I've absolutely nailed this, especially when you do the first and second team. And the Draymond push has been incredible, and I don't want to act like you're dismissing Draymond, but sometimes there can be this push where you're like, this is a 6-month award. Like, let's remember that. And Mobley, to start the season, there's some numbers that tell you like his impact was far greater the first half of the season, second half of the season. But back to the original, like asking people about defensive stuff, the number of times that people just kind of stop and take a breath when they talk about the Dort that are working in the league every night, like you can't help but be impressionable.
There was somebody wrote a piece about for 2.5 straight months nobody scored 30 on them, and it was. I also think, and we talked about this when Marcus won Defensive Player of the Year 2 years ago, which I forget who he beat. I think the perimeter defender is more important than it used to be for stuff like this, just because all of these teams have these awesome guys that you at least have to make work. And I don't know, what he did to Jaylen Brown in that Boston game was just nuts. But I watched them like when they played. I went to 2 OKC games, and both times Harden was like, "Fuck." You could just see him. It's like, Jesus Christ. And then if Dort comes out of the game, I have these other two. So,
the smart one felt like a campaign though too. Like he did all these interviews where he kept just going, we never get to win it, or
Right. Well, they were number 1 in defense. There were some good advanced metrics, but yeah, it's looking back maybe.
I don't know. I'd argue Rob Williams, although you could then go, okay, but Rob got to do what he did because he was on something in the corner. Primarily, it would be hopefully a non-shooter, so that he could just
stand hang around.
The entire time.
Represent.
So the perimeter guys usually it takes so much more for me to go into it. By the way, he actually beat another perimeter guy that year because Bridges was the second, Gobert was third.
East quickly. We talked about Bucks Pacers, Knicks Pistons. Knicks are minus 460. We've been dying for this series. I think there's going to be, as it gets closer, some Pistons upset buzz. I think it's a really hard ask if the 5 Knicks guys are all playing together. I was talking to a Knicks fan about this. If you catch them on a night when 1 or 2 of those 5 guys aren't playing, they look, incredibly vulnerable with reason because they don't really have a bench. Those 5 guys together with breaks between the games and all the guys they can throw a Cade, this just seems like a tall ask for them to, and I think that's why the line reflects it. I really want to talk myself into a Pistons upset case, but I think just the fact that they made the playoffs, they're 6 seed, they had the year they had. Cade established himself as a guy. Duran has been, I think he's now one of the best young centers in the league. Some of their signings really smart. That's kind of a win in itself. Now they're going to go in this series. They'll bang the Knicks around. There'll be a couple altercations. They'll make a name for themselves, and that's probably the win. If those 5 guys are healthy in the Knicks, I just don't see any.
I don't understand bunker shots at all.
Since the All-Star break, and granted the numbers are a little weird for the Knicks, but who do you think's better defensively?
I would bet the ratings better for Denver Detroit, because all the advanced metrics have been favorable for them last 30 games.
Since the All-Star break, the Knicks are 11th on defense, the Pistons are 15th. So, and by the way, points-wise, it's a half a point, so it's not like some dramatic difference here.
Oh yeah, the rough.
Now, is
Idiot.
that because Brunson was missing some of those games? Is there something there as opposed to, no, we have Mitchell Robinson back. But I'm with you. This feels a bit like, hey, you're going to get a little playoff seasoning, Detroit. This is an incredible story, but are you really going to beat the Knicks despite their flaws and the flaws that we get into as they move a little bit further on? Because that's why, like the Pacers-Knicks scenarios, where you were like, if they end up facing each other,
That was bad for the Knicks.
yeah, because it kind of felt like
Not a good series for them.
there were similarities where you didn't like your point guard on defense, you didn't like your center on defense, but you liked some of your options around it. But that might be the problem.
It's not a fun series for Towns. That would not be my ideal Towns matchup. The Pacers wouldn't enjoy that one. The thing with the Pistons that I think is just really cool is the Bickerstaff leaves the Cavs, right?
Yeah.
The Cavs what do they end up with 64 wins, and Atkinson is a Coach of the Year candidate. And Bickerstaff goes to this other team and turns them around. And so you look at the Atkinson piece and you go, well, clearly he's a big improvement over Bickerstaff. And yet Bickerstaff was a huge improvement over the worst coach of the 21st century, Monty Williams. And somehow it just all worked out for everybody. So I guess I'm happy for Bickerstaff because it would have been one of those things where you just look like a schmuck that this team just played way better when you left, but now he got this other thing. But
Is Cade the best player in the series?
I think Brunson is. I would say Brunson. Brunson's awesome, especially like in a playoff series where we're just gonna have breaks between games. Like Brunson's incredible. I really
That's what
when he made the 65 game limit, I test drove what he would look like in the first All-NBA spot instead of Mitchell, and I couldn't get there. But I think he's been that special this year.
Were you more tempted to go Brunson or Ant for Mitchell's spot?
I test drove in as well, and then I did a long drive around the lap with Curry. But
Went
I
for
think
a walk
Curry's.
outside.
Well, Curry's last week, I mean, that San Antonio loss was an abomination. They lost the two biggest games they played all year were that San Antonio, or losses were that San Antonio loss and the one today. I think if they win those games and they're a 3 seed or a 4 seed, I think it's a more interesting conversation. He had it in his hands if he was just awesome down the stretch. I think he could have pushed Mitchell, but I don't think the way they ended. And by the way, that San Antonio loss is the loss of the year. That fucked up the playoff schedule 9 ways. It fucked up everything. Because Harrison Barnes had a revenge game. And the Spurs with Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes celebrated like they got to the Final Four. Like, it's a team that's tanking.
I'm sure Warriors fans could have made a couple of those in Game 7
Right. We're getting to take that
9
out.
years ago.
For Festus.
He can do it himself now. Yoo-hoo. He can do it himself.
Getting to take that
9
out.
years ago.
For Festus is silly. Playing stuff quickly. Who do you think the Cavs would want to face the most out of Magic, Bulls, Heat?
You leaving the Hawks out?
No, in the Hawks. All right, all 4 of those. Magic, Hawks, Bulls, Heat. The Hawks are pretty grim if you look at their actual teams they beat in the last 2 months versus the teams they've lost to. Where it's one of those, we're not tanking, and a lot of these other teams we're playing are, and we're getting some wins out of it, but the numbers are pretty grim if you actually look at it. I think that's why the Magic are 5-point favorites in the playing game.
Yeah, the records, I mean, they're both around 500, but Atlanta's defense is so bad that I think it's just, if you're going up against somebody in the playoffs, you'd probably rather have a terrible, terrible defense. Just knowing that it's going to be easy work. Even in the night where we're not feeling it, we're not making threes, are we actually going to be scared of anything as opposed to Orlando, who we know their offense at times has been unwatchable, and it's improved from unwatchable the last few weeks.
High five.
It's a 1-2 punch of Paolo and Franz. So, and I think you could look at some of the Miami stuff, but it's just Miami's at best a very average basketball team. So,
Can I do a cousin of you guys?
yeah,
People forget.
yeah.
Vaguely insulting when you start with people forget. But in this case, I do think people have forgotten how big the Jalen Johnson injury was. That might be the number one people forget. Like, Jalen Johnson was playing awesome. And if Atlanta had Jalen Johnson with the team that they have, the rest of the guys, that I kind of like some of the guys in that team, and I don't even think the Hunter trade, the guys that got back from those guys are playing for them. If they had Jalen Johnson, this would be a lot more interesting as a kind of a frisky 8 seed that might be able to steal a game or two. But
When he was still
really good.
playing, I was tracking touches. Just how many touches do you have? So it's pretty clear Jokic has more. He touches the basketball more times in a basketball game than any other player.
It's alright.
In trades, usually right around there. If not other years where he's led the league in total touches over the course of the entire season. During the time Jalen Johnson was playing, he'd be like 3rd or 4th in the NBA. That's how important he was and how much they trusted him. And think about that too, playing off of Trey and having another guy that actually has that many touches. And he looks like he's on the way to, I don't know if he's like a superstar, changes the face of the franchise kind of thing, but he was really special.
Aight.
Fun to watch. So you're right. Like, look, every summer we'll do it again next year. We do the over-unders, and roster I do kind of like, despite some of the obvious concerns. Yeah, it's Atlanta, so pencil me in for like another year doing that.
I think that was the the second biggest injury of the year in terms of the actual playoff stuff, other than Kyrie. Which, if the Mavs had Kyrie, that's the team that they have. It's at least a team that you know you'd have to throw a couple haymakers against. Now it's like without him, but it's ridiculous.
I think you're right about that.
But I have Jalen Johnson second though. I even ahead of Wemby. Like if San Antonio had Wemby, I don't feel like watch out. San Antonio could maybe steal a couple games from anyone in round one, but Atlanta.
But don't you think? Look, San Antonio, they could be 5 better, 5 games better, right? They were 5 out of the 10 spot.
Yeah, I
So
just
maybe
felt like their
Dallas is
supporting cast felt like it was a year away. Next year.
Yeah, that's
Next
fair.
year would be pretty interesting. You know what else would have been interesting if the Mavs had gotten Austin Reeves in the Luka trade, which they should have just asked for.
Or if San Antonio would offer a contract.
Woo!
That could have happened too. I was talking about somebody about that this week. Like, how does Dallas not say, look, Reeves has to be in the deal or it's not happening? I just don't think Pelinka. We'll talk about this for the rest of our lives. I just don't think Pelinka's like too much. I'm walking away. Now you talk about this far. There's no way he doesn't say, fine, take Reeves.
It's my favorite, brother. Forget about Ruby, like lining up a punt with the Masters on 18. Like, how would you handle that?
Yeah.
I do, like, I like to take ourselves through the exercise of if this person calls you and offers you this, will you have the balls to say no to something that you desperately want? Knowing that, okay, this fixes for all of like this Lakers window extending and running in Denver in the last couple playoffs, like, hey, if something bounces our way, like this has actually been, I think, a more successful run for the Lakers than they actually get credit for. Because LeBron's on the team, they're held to maybe the standard they're supposed to be a title contender, so then they're brought up as a title contender on TV shows, and you and I have talked about it. We're like, going into this year, they're like, look, they're probably not going to have the same health luck that they had with AD and LeBron the year prior.
Yeah.
If they're healthy in the playoffs, they get the right matchup, maybe. But this is a team that won a title, half a decade ago, and here we go. Like, I don't know. I can't figure them out. Like, I don't know if I should be picking them, because I can't imagine that they would beat OKC in a 7-game series if they're lucky enough to get that far. Okay? But, looking at, and that would be the Western Conference Finals.
Pushed it.
Looking at that moment where you're Nico and you go, well, I have to ask for more because Pelinka can't actually say, like, Pelinka would never bring it up. He'd be like, I was this close to getting Luka, but I wouldn't include Reeves. And you would just go, Luka solves the next 5 years of your what if
15. It's 15 years.
Let's call it 7.
Let's call it 12.
To get work that bad, it's been 2 months since the trade, and I did a monologue on it the other day, and I still felt like it was somewhat relevant grading.
Give me that trophy.
As 31 in the first half, but
Yeah, give me that trophy. Let's go. Yeah, Bones Jones. Quest for greatness. This is one of the big steps.
you're gonna have to like ride it out.
Where was the one guy, whether it was Dumont or anybody else, who was just like, hold on, we're trading Luka, we're not gonna get Reeves, it's not Davis, like, we're just making the Lakers like much better.
Imagine if Nico says, well, then they would have said no. We'd be like, oh no.
Okay. Sounds great.
PGA Tour, baby.
I
Look,
just
you can
can't-
hate. Can
I
you
can't
hate your
believe
own? Like the one guy that had the say in it thought the least of the asset in the entire basketball world. The one guy that exists, right? Because there's always like one guy who's like, oh, he's not that good. I think Skip Bayless tried to have a LeBron, Rory tweet or something, or it didn't. I don't know. It was basically just a new way to shit on LeBron. And
Interesting.
yeah, I was like, cool, tricep pull
It was
down.
in the lab,
bro.
yeah.
Yeah, it was in the lab, just baking. So there's always one person that will find a way to say the thing that like you can't fucking believe somebody believes. And the one person happened to be the guy who was running the Dallas Mavericks when it came to Luka.
So, I got more intel on that trade. It was a known thing 90 minutes before the trade. It was done 90 minutes before it was actually announced. Maybe even a little more than that.
Okay, but
Because
that's not unusual.
But they tried to make it seem until the very last second. I think way more people knew, and I think it got around the league a little bit before it actually got reported. And I think the consensus was, there's no way this is true because that can't be what Dallas got for Luka. This has to be some sort of. There's no way this can't.
All
be
right,
true.
good times.
And then it was
Good night.